So I figured I would finally do a video on some of my most carried and most used slip joint knives because that's really what I'm into the most is slip joint, traditional slip joint pocket knives. So generally speaking, I'm not always carrying like a modern folder, but like 95% of the time I am carrying a slip joint. um, so this is just going to be a video on some of my most carried and most used slip joints. This isn't for the year 2022. This is just like of all time, pretty much, is basically what this is going to be. Because there's a couple knives that I'm not even sure I've carried this year, but I carried them a lot other years, I guess. Um, but yeah, this is just going to be some of the knives that I've carried the most that are in my collection of traditional slip joint pocket knives. This is going to be a long one or a longer one because I'm going to be talking about quite a few knives here. So, keep that in mind. Starting off here with one of my favorite knives that I have. This is a Winchester Moose. Super strong action on the main clip point blade there. Some of these knives I do clean up a little bit. This one's been cleaned up a little bit. The main blade's got some more patina on it there and everything. But I did clean it up in like June or something. Before I went on a trip, I cleaned it up a little bit. But obviously I've carried it since then. So there's a little bit of patina on the main blade. I think the spear blade's still nice and shiny, so I don't use that one as much. Um, This is a Winchester black box series, which were made by Queen in like the 80s and maybe early 90s. This one was made in 88. It is a moose, which is one of my more favorite patterns. And this is a very large knife. It's about the size of like a case large Stockman, or what most companies would call like a jumbo Stockman. I believe 1095 steel. It is high polished, although it's not anymore. On the clip blade here, you can still see the Winchester etch, even though I have polished this blade, I think only once. I do love this knife. It's a very well made knife. The back springs are very strong on this main clip blade here. The action is ridiculous. Um, Getting it open sometimes a challenge, but I love that. It does slap the back spring up here near the tip of the blade. So I have put a piece of leather down in there, and it actually looks like maybe the leather's starting to scoot down. So maybe I'll have to move that up a little bit, or maybe it's right about where it needs to be. I think it's right about where it needs to be. But I just do that to help try to prevent any kind of blade wrap on the tip. But I think there is a little bit there. That doesn't bother me that much. But yeah, probably most carried knife on here, certainly this year anyway. But I do carry this one quite a lot. It's got these dark brown jig bone covers here. They almost look black. That's how dark they are. Carbon steel blades, obviously carbon back springs. Like I said before, these were made by Queen back when Queen was still making really nice knives, when Bill Howard was still there. And this is just a really nice knife. It's got a pin shield. The jigging's really nice. I just really love this knife. So this one's probably the one that I've carried the most out of all of these. Um, but yeah, so the Winchester, the 1988 Winchester Black Box Moose here is probably one of my favorite pocket knives I have, and it's probably my most carried out of all of these. So we're starting there. Starting off strong. Next one, we're going right to Great Eastern Cutlery. A lot of these are Great Eastern Cutlery, and I guess you might even consider this a Great Eastern Cutlery since it's when Bill Howard was still at Queen. But this is a Great Eastern Cutlery TC Barlow, and this is the 15, and this is the glitter gold. Um, I have two of these 15s from this 2021 run, or 2020. What year were these made? Was it 2020 or 2021? It was 2021. I thought so. I have two of these. I have the saw cut, which isn't a whole lot of saw cut. That was the SFO for Charlie Campagna, and then I bought this one also. Both of them on the secondary market, so we're not going to talk about how much money I paid. Less for this than I did for the Charlie Campagna one, obviously. Um, I carried that one a little bit, but once I got this one, I stopped carrying that one almost entirely. Um, if you don't know what a TC Barlow is, it's basically on the 15 frame. It's about your standard Barlow size. Um, this one's a spear blade. I don't necessarily love the long pull. I kind of wish it was just a regular nail nick. But these are made by Great Eastern Cutlery. It started off as a SFO for Charlie Campagna, and then in 2021, there were 3 others released alongside Charlie Campagna's SFO. The Glitter Gold, the Saw Cut Wood, Osage, Saw Cut Burnt Osage or something, and what was the other one? Oh, like a smooth, like yellow, burnt yellow bone or something. But this glitter gold, for whatever reason, I think a lot of people didn't like it. I don't know if they perceived it as being feminine or whatever. But I really wanted one of these. Like I wanted to pick up another TC, and I was looking for a glitter gold one for a semi reasonable price, and I did end up finding one earlier this year. This knife has spent quite a bit of time in my pocket, as you might be able to tell by the steel bolsters here. They're scratched up, and it's kind of hard to show because of my light being so bright, but there is some minor patina on the steel bolsters there. You can see the pin a little bit because I think it did start to develop just a slight amount of blade play, and I decided to fix that. It didn't mess up the action or anything, so I'm happy about that. You can see the blade here. Still says good as gold. Tidioute Cutlery, good as gold trademark. But there's quite a bit of patina on the blade from me cutting food with it and everything. This knife has spent a considerable amount of time in my pocket. I do love Barlow knives, as I think most of you probably know. The Barlow is like my favorite pattern. I also love the big Barlows. Um, but yeah, so TC Barlow, the 2021 TC Barlow 15 is another one of my most carried knives in this glitter gold here, which I just absolutely love. This glitter gold acrylic. I don't know why some people didn't like it, but I think it's pretty cool. My camera doesn't seem to like it, I will say that. But I do indeed like it. But yeah, so considerable amount of time. I do enjoy this knife quite a lot. I'm happy I got it. So that's the glitter gold TC Barlow. What do I want to do next? We'll go here next. 2020, I believe, was the year for this, and this is the 23. This released just before Great Eastern Cutlery got so popular that you couldn't get them from dealers anymore. And I did manage to pick this one up from a dealer. I have the Woodland Micarta or whatever too. I have one of them as well. Yes, 2020. I have one of those as well, but this one's my more carried one. And when I was getting this, they also had the Jig bullet shield one, and I was trying to figure out which one I wanted, and I ended up settling on this like natural smooth bone, yellow, whatever it is here. And I'm kind of glad I did because I got some interesting covers here. This side's not quite as interesting as this side because this side's got like a bump down here at the bottom. So that's interesting. I like the coloring. This, I think, was my first Northfield that I had. I think it might have been. Because generally speaking, I just bought the Tidioute ones because they were usually the ones that I wanted. So I think this was my first Northfield Great Eastern Cutlery. And this has spent considerable amount of time in my pocket, regardless of the fact that this is a huge knife. Just to put it in perspective, this fits a buck 110 sheath really well. That's about the size that this is, about 5 inch, not 5 inches closed. You got your, this is basically a jumbo trapper pattern. So you got your main drop point blade here, or we'll call it a drop point. blade here. This one's all scratched up from cutting cardboard with it because, like I said, this knife has spent a considerable amount of time in my pocket. My camera does not, or my phone does not like Northfield knives because they're shiny. Um, yeah, you can see all the scratches from cutting cardboard. I think when I was moving, this was a knife that I was carrying quite a bit, and that would be the reason for all the cardboard scratches because I was cutting up a lot of cardboard when I was moving. This one did, once again, I think develop a little bit of play, so you can see the pin there. That's You're gonna see that on some of my knives. It's just something when my knives have blade play, I fix it. The action on this knife is awesome, and then it's got this giant spear blade that I just love. I love the shape and size of this spear blade. This one gets used a lot for food, so it'll probably be a little more stained than the drop point. Yeah, you can see a little bit there, but it's still not enough patina to not be shiny anymore. So my camera still doesn't like it. But yeah, I think this was my first Northfield. Very nice knife. These did have blade wrap too. I think both of mine did. I think just on the spay blade, although I think the drop point might have a slight amount, but on the spay blade, it definitely had a blade wrap. So I ended up putting a piece of leather down in there. Again, you can't really see it. There's a piece of leather down in there to try to prevent that from happening. I do think there's just a slight nick there in the blade that you might be able to see from blade wrap. So that is something to keep in mind with these 23s. But I do love this knife. And it has spent, like I said, a considerable amount of time in my pocket. Anytime that I feel like being ridiculous, I'll throw the 23 in my pocket and carry it for a little bit because I really do like it. Um, yeah, you can see all the scratched up nickel silver and everything to prove that I really do carry it and everything. Some people don't carry these knives at all. I carry them a lot. Okay, next. We'll go to another favorite pattern of mine. This is a 97. I have three 97s. I think this one's probably the most carried or the second most carried, but I decided to only talk about one of the 97s. So this is the smooth yellow Texas Rose, smooth yellow bone, whatever it's called, yellow bone smooth with a rose shield. It says yellow rose, and it's got the shape of Texas there on the edge that you can just barely see. This knife wasn't perfect. I got this back when you could still get them from dealers. I got it from Collector Knives. Believe it or not, the one day I noticed that this scale or this cover was moving around a little bit. So instead of sending it back, I just decided I would see how long some super glue would hold it in place. And it's been holding up, so I'm not that concerned about it. Someday I might, someday if I'm over that way, stop in and see if they can actually fix this, especially if it gets loose again. I did think that was a little weird. I had never had that experience with a traditional knife before where the cover is loose. I thought that was odd. But yeah, I love the 97. It's a large Coke bottle. The action isn't as strong as some other knives, which is one reason why I think it wasn't super popular with a lot of people. But I just love the size of it. I love the blade shape. I love all that. Like I said, I have three of them, so I do really like them. This is also a Northfield. This one's a little more patinaed up, so the camera doesn't hate it quite as much, but you can still see that polish and everything. It's hard to get rid of that. Um, really scratched up nickel silver from all the time it's spent in my pocket. Um, just a really cool pattern. I love the 97. And you can see there's even some patina there on the back spring from sweat and stuff. But yeah, so this is my yellow smooth bone 97, and it's another one of my pretty often carried knives, and it's another big one. You can see it compared to the 23, and then here's the Moose too. The Moose is also a fairly large knife. I do kind of seem to have a thing for large knives, although I do sometimes carry some smaller knives. Just depends on how I feel. So this was my first 15, my first it's not really a Barlow, but it was my first experience with something like a Barlow from Great Eastern Cutlery. And this is just a 15 boys knife. This was the bail and chain model, meaning that it came with a chain and like a thing you could attach to your suspenders if you were a cowboy or like a farmhand, or like a young boy with overalls on or whatever. You could connect it there so that if by chance you were bending over and this would fall out of your pocket, the chain would catch it. It's kind of an old thing. It's not really something that we would use now, unless you would wear suspenders or coats frequently, I guess. Maybe it would come in use, but I had no use for the chains. I took the chain off. I left the bail on. I know a lot of people that got these took the bail and the chain off. I decided to leave the bail on just because it's too much of a pain to try to take it off without damaging these beautiful jig bone covers here. So I didn't want to do that. So I left the bail on. It doesn't bother me. Um, I do wish it didn't move around quite as much as it does, but other than that, it really doesn't bother me much. This is another Tidioute. I have polished this one up fairly recently, a little bit. It was a lot more patinaed up than this. The blade was almost black because I do carry this one so frequently. This is another steel bolster, steel back spring, steel liner, everything steel knife, which I really do like because it's more of like a traditional, like every man's knife would have used, steel everything. So I do like when they have the steel liners and steel bolsters and everything along with carbon steel blades. Everything else is carbon steel too, which is cool. Except for the bail, which I think is probably some sort of stainless steel, but I don't know. But this one, once again, really good action on it. This one's got my preferred nail nick situation, where it's just got a regular nail nick. Whereas if we compare it to the Good as Gold here, that's got the long pull, I definitely prefer this. This is more basic. This is more of like a dressed up blade, I guess. And I would prefer the more basic one, but that's just me. Um, Really nice knife. I've carried this one quite a bit. This one's from 2018. I got it from a dealer, just like the 97. I got it from a dealer back when nobody wanted these, and I should have gotten two of them or three of them. If I would have known what the Great Eastern Cutlery market was going to do, I would have bought a lot more 97s, a lot more of these boys chain knives, and a lot more 38 specials, just because they were all knives that were fairly inexpensive, that nobody wanted, that hung around at dealers for 3 years after they were released, and nobody wanted them. And I could have gotten a bunch of them and had them, but I didn't know what the market was going to do, so obviously I didn't do that. So I only have one of these. I do really love the jigging on this. It's probably my favorite jigging on any of the knives I own, which is one reason why this knife is always in and out of my pocket, is just because I really love the jigging. I love this like yellow and brown bone here. This is just such a cool knife, and like I said, I wish I would have gotten another one, and maybe one in like the ebony when they were still available. But now they're ridiculously priced for a knife that nobody wanted to begin with. So, yeah. But anyway, the 15 boy's knife with the bail and chain, minus the chain. Really nice knife. It's been carried quite a bit, as you'd be able to tell by the patina on the blade, other than the fact that I've polished a lot of it off. But you can still see some spots here and there and everything. So carried quite a lot. Um, One of my favorite knives. I'm going to be saying that a lot because a lot of these are my favorite knives. That's why I end up carrying them. Um, on to 38 special, since we're talking about it. I bought this in 2020. This knife was released in 2017. I paid like $75 for this or something, because again, nobody wanted these because they were all concerned about the 38 whittlers and all the other like cool patterns that Great Eastern Cutlery made. So I decided to order one because I thought it was interesting. And I'm like, well, we'll see. And I actually ended up really liking it. Um, just the way it feels in your hand and everything. It's a little backwards from how you would think it would be, but it's actually very comfortable to hold. So I really like this. I really like the green bone. I really like colorful knives, which is something I wish Great Eastern Cutlery would do more of. They're starting to with their acrylics and stuff, so that's cool. But I really do love this green. I think they call it tractor bone, green tractor bone. There's a minor imperfection in the bone there. It doesn't seem to be a crack, and it hasn't really advanced any in the 2 years that I've had it, so I'm not concerned about it. But yeah, this is the 38 Special, another one of the least popular knives. You have the 97, the 15s with the bale and chain, and the 38 Special were all hanging around for quite a while on dealer websites, because I guess everybody was concerned about stuff like, the TC Barlows and 78s and 77s and all those like cooler knives that Great Eastern Cutlery made. But I ended up really loving this knife a lot, so much so that I ended up winning another one for about $100 on eBay, and that one's in Sandbar Stag, and that one's just in the tube away, in case anything would ever happen to this one, or if I would ever wear out the blade on this, I'd have another 38 Special to pull out and use. So that one's away, just in storage, just so that someday I can replace this if I need to. But this one is this might honestly beat the Moose for the most carried. I'm not sure. I know there was a period of time where I was carrying this like all the time, and you can kind of see that from all the scratched up bolsters and everything, the patina on the blade. Um, it has been used. It has been well loved and used. Um, but yeah, this is going to be the testament to the fact that I actually do use these Great Eastern Cutlery knives. At least most of them. There are some that haven't been used, but that's besides the point. Um, but I really do like the 38 Special. If you can find these for any kind of reasonable price these days, they're really nice, but unfortunately, you really can't. I do like the long, slender clip blade. It really cuts well, and it just feels right in your hand. Now, once again, the back springs weren't as strong on these as I think a lot of Great Eastern Cutlery enthusiasts are used to. But, sometimes you don't need a ridiculous back spring, especially if you're cutting, if you're like, if you know what you're doing and you're just cutting with it and you're not doing anything crazy, you don't really need a super strong back spring to hold that blade open, because you cutting down or cutting through things is not going to have that blade close on you. Plus the fact that you can kind of put your finger there on the tang and that'll keep it from closing. But yeah, really nice knife, the 38 Special, one of my favorites, along with the 97 and the 15 Boys knife. One of my favorite knives, and I really love this basic Tidioute shield. It's probably one of my favorite shields that Great Eastern Cutlery does or used to do. Um, but this one might be my favorite knife. I haven't carried it a whole lot recently, just because I've been carrying other things. But I'm sure sometime here in the near future it will make it back into my pocket for a little bit, because I really do love the way it feels. I love the way it cuts. I just love everything about this knife right here. So another one of my favorites. Like I said, I'm going to be saying that a lot. That's why these knives get carried. Um, where do I want to go next? We'll go to the second Great Eastern Cutlery knife I ever bought, which is this 44 Gunstock. Now, this probably hasn't been carried anywhere near as much as like the 38 or maybe even this like TC. But it's worth mentioning because for a while I did carry this a lot. And like I said, it was the second Great Eastern Cutlery knife I ever bought. And this is the 44 Buffalo Jack gunstock in Gabon Ebony. You got this nice clip blade here with a really good pull and action on it. Really good. These were an awesome pattern that Great Eastern Cutlery put out. I really wish I would have once again jumped on one of the jig bone ones while they were still available, but I didn't. I think a lot of us have those regrets about Great Eastern Cutlery, but we didn't know what was going to happen with the market, so you can't really find one now. But this is just a really nice jackknife. You get your big old pen blade here. This is a pattern production premiere, so you get the triple P in the circle there. Really nice size pen blade, pretty big. Action on the pen blade is good also. I really do love the way this knife looks with the ebony handles. You can see some patina on the back springs there. A little bit of patina on the blade. I don't think I've polished this up, but patina does tend to change over time. There was a time when this was like a really pretty like purple patina, but I think something changed there. Um, but this knife is another one that I really like. I just haven't carried it a whole lot recently, but it's probably up there when we talk about the most carried knives that I own in general. It's probably up there. And this just has the basic hot dog shield here. You can see, once again, evidence of being in my pocket with my keys and my pocket change and everything. Because I've tried carrying knives and pocket slips, and it's not for me. I'll just let the knife get all scratched up and everything, because that's just a part of carrying a pocket knife. Let's get away from Great Eastern Cutlery for a little bit here. I believe I bought this before I owned a Great Eastern Cutlery knife. Back before I had a checking account or any of that, and I had to buy all my knives with either Amazon gift cards or cash. Um, so I believe this was before I had a Great Eastern Cutlery knife, and this is a Case Trapper. This is supposed to be brown saw cut bone. It's not very saw cut. It's more of like a brown smooth bone, but I do like the way it looks. And this is just a standard trapper with your clip blade. But this is in carbon steel. There's CV steel. So I love that. I think somewhere that still has these available. Is it DLT maybe? Maybe still has some of these. I'm not sure, but this is carbon steel. You can see some patina there. This knife isn't carried anywhere near as much as some of my Great Eastern Cutlery knives are, but I wanted to have the case knife in here, just because it's more of like, I don't want to say more affordable, but it's more of like a common like knife that you would see like every day, and it's fairly easy to get and everything. You can see it has some patina on it there. Have carried it. This is actually a pretty well made case knife. I have several rants on case, so I won't go on the rant, but this is one of the better made case knives that I own. Really nice trapper. The problem is that I'm not a super fan of trappers, but I really do like the way this trapper looks. I like the carbon steel. I like the fact that it's put together well. So this one does occasionally get carried. Um, Although I don't think I've carried it anytime in the last year, but I'm sure it'll end up in the pocket eventually. Again, like I said, the main problem is I'm just not a huge fan of trappers. At least not standard trappers. I do like the jumbo trapper, as we've been over. These are actually kind of similar. Just realized that they look kind of similar. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee since I've been sitting here for 28 minutes. But yeah, pretty well made case knife. I like the case, the simple case XX shield there. Brass pins, brass liners, stainless back springs. They get all scratched up. Instead of getting patina, they just get all scratched up because they're really high polish. I wish Case wouldn't high polish all their knives, but they do. And that's something that I guess case collectors like. I'm not really a case collector. I do have a fair amount of case knives, but I don't consider myself to be a collector of case knives or really a collector at all, because I don't like that word, because that insinuates something that I am not. A collector, generally speaking, has all their knives away in boxes and is like saving them up and keeping them nice for whatever reason. But I like to take them out and use them and cut things with them and enjoy them, because, I mean, they may not ever be worth anything anyway. So why would I worry about that? I am a guy who has a collection of knives, but I am not a collector, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I see it. But anyway, Case Trapper, pretty well made, this one. Your your mileage may vary. Is that something that they say? I believe that is. But this one's nice. I like the carbon steel. This one's put together well. Probably my first experience with like a slip joint with carbon steel. The first carbon steel knife I had was an Open L8, and I do still have that, but I figured I didn't need to talk about that because I haven't carried that in, I don't know, 2 years or something ridiculous. I should break it out. They're nice knives. I do like Open Ls. Put this aside. Okay, we got 3 more knives. Let's do the Otter Messer. This is the Otter Messer 3 Rivet. A knife that I believe I would compare to like a case sodbuster. This is like the German version of the case sodbuster as far as I'm concerned, even though the fact that they do make one that is actually a sodbuster. But we're just going to ignore that. This is the Otter Method 3 rivet. Unfortunately, I didn't get the 3 rivet with the brass rivets. I think somebody told me these are aluminum. I don't know if they're aluminum or not, but they are not brass. Some of the earlier ones had brass and they had a different wood. This is like a smoked oak or something. It's hard enough wood to not get really beat up, but if you like really try, it will get scratches in it. You can see one there. Um, pretty pretty nice knife. I really like it. It's well made enough for being what it is, which is just, a like $60 pocket knife or something. See a little bit of rust there. I haven't put this one in my pocket for a little bit. The beginning of this year, I had this in my pocket like all the time. Every snowstorm, I'd put this in my pocket for some reason, which I think is funny. But yeah, again, carbon steel. You can get these in stainless too if you want. Carbon steel blade, C75, I think. Takes a really good edge. You can see I kind of messed with the edge there a little bit, trying to make it a what do they call that? Wouldn't be a steeper edge, a lower angle edge to lower angle edge to have it cut better. So I did that, but knife holds up pretty well. I do like the way the C75 takes a patina. You can still see the cute little otter there on the blade. Just a good old big spear blade. Real big handle, feels good in your hand and everything. It's one of the reasons why I've carried it so much. It's thick and it feels good in your hand. The little like decorative bolsters are pretty neat too. They do make a knife without the decoration, without the 3 rivets. If that's not for you and you just want a basic knife, they do make that as well. I kind of like I don't know what you would call this, scallop bolster maybe. I don't know. And it says these are stainless, but my experience seems to tell me that this isn't very stainless because it is stained a little bit over the years that I've had it, or years. I don't know. I'm not sure when I bought this. I think 2021, some maybe the start of 2021. So it probably has been about 2 years since I got this. Nice knife. Haven't carried it a lot recently, but the beginning of this year, I carried it a lot when it was snowing. And it is a well-made knife, and it is made in Solingen, Germany, which is one of those really historical cutlery places. Generally, you have like Solingen, Germany. You have holy crap, I'm gonna for Sheffield. You have Sheffield, England, and then you have like places like New York. I think Utica is actually a place in New York, and there was a company called Utica that used to make knives. Of course, you have Bradford. Bradford's where Case is made. You have Bradford where Case is made. You have Titusville where Queen stuff used to be made, and where Great Eastern Cutlery is now made. And those are kind of like the cutlery meccas and everything. But Solingen, Germany, you have Boker out of there. You have Otter Messer out of there. These Otter Messers are well-made knives. You can get the Black Cat knife for like, I don't know, $40 probably these days. And it's a well-made knife. You can get them in carbon steel, you can get them in stainless, and it's a knife that's just going to work. It's going to hold an edge pretty well. It's going to be easy enough to sharpen that you're not going to need any kind of crazy sharpening tools or anything. And it's just a good old, like everyday man's like pocket knife. And I really do love the 3 rivet. I just haven't carried it a lot recently. Um, but yeah, good knife. 3 Rivet if you have $60, $70 laying around and you want to try out a more basic traditional pocket knife that will last probably forever. You can go ahead and order one of these. They're really nice. I like them. Um, 3 Rivets, they're just not quite as fancy as Great Eastern Cutlery or Case, obviously. I'm going to get that beard hair out of there. Um, okay, we'll save the last Great Eastern Cutlery for last. This is a Bear & Sons Barlow. Now, once again, I haven't carried this anywhere near as much as I've carried some of these other Great Eastern Cutlery knives and like the 3 Rivet that I just talked about and stuff. But I have carried this enough that it's worth talking about. Now, my experience with Bear & Sons has been rather hit or miss, similar to Case, although it seems like most of the problems I have with Bear & Sons are like problems with the action. Like I got two of the Greenbone Barlows, and the action on the main blade is awful on both of them. This knife, on the other hand, is actually pretty good. I do think that I had to fix blade play. Yeah, it looks like I did because the pin's sticking out. But other than that, I mean, the action's a little weak, but this is an okay knife. And, you know, it's carbon steel blades, which I like. It's a Barlow, which I like, and the Bear & Son Barlow is a little different than most Barlows. The blade's kind of at a weird angle. Let me see if I can make a comparison here. The blade's kind of angled down as compared to being just straight out, which is a little interesting. Something you don't really notice when you get used to actually carrying the knife, but it is something that's a little different. Carbon steel, you got your clip blade, and you got your little pen blade here, and it is a rather little pen blade. The fit and finish on these knives isn't the best, but this was literally like a $40 pocket knife. So, you know, pretty happy with that $40 USA made Barlow. I do wish Bear & Sons would get their stuff together with some of their knives because, like I said, it's hit or miss. A lot like Case is. If we could get these um, less expensive USA made knife companies to get their quality control up, maybe Great Eastern Cutlery wouldn't be such a big deal. Um, and that would be nice. And it would just be nice to be able to order a knife from like Bear & Son or Case and not have to worry about the quality control on it. But like I said, this one's pretty good, and I've carried it a fair amount. I believe, in fact, no, I don't believe. I do. I know that this is the knife I had in my pocket when I went on my first date with my girlfriend that I am dating now. So that's kind of cool that I like the sentimental thing behind it. I do kind of wish that I had a nicer knife in my pocket on the first date. That would be cool. But it's cool to look at this and just remember that this was the knife that I had in my pocket when I went on my first date with her. So there's some sentimental value to this. And that's part of the reason why this is in here. There was also I don't know, a week, 2 week period where I was carrying this knife like every day because I really did like it. And for the price, it's actually pretty good. I do like the carbon steel. I really do like the way the bone looks. I think it looks nice. And you can see this evidence of pocket wear and stuff here. It looks like a quarter sat up against it for a long time there, kind of. Um, but yeah, so Bear & Sons Barlow, two-bladed carbon steel. If you can get one that has good fit and finish, it's an okay knife. And for $40, I do like it. And like I said, I have some sentimental value behind this one because it was in my pocket the day I met my girlfriend. So that's nice. Anyway, on to the last knife here, which is this Dixie Stockman. That's what this is by Great Eastern Cutlery. It's got these really nice brownish yellow jig bone covers here. It's got a houndstooth shield. And this is a Dixie Stockman, meaning it's not a traditional Stockman. You do have your main clip blade here. It is a long, long pointy clip point blade. You can see some patina on the blade there, some spots. I believe you might call that even pepper spots even. Um, there, the action on the main blade's pretty good. Instead of having a sheep's foot blade, you have a Wharncliffe, which I actually would prefer a sheep's foot, but I like the fact that they're changing it up a little bit. There was some tape residue on the blade there. Once again, just, you know, a testament to the fact that I do use these knives. This was another knife made in 2018. I did luck out on this one and I managed to get it on the Knife Connection, I believe. I don't know where it came from, but it just showed up the one day and I'm like, okay, I'm going to order that because I want one of them. And then instead of the spade blade, you got a drop point blade, which is always preferable to me. I don't really love the spade blade on a Stockman, especially, or on a Trapper. The only spade blade I like is the spade blade on these jumbo trappers because it's almost a drop point, but I really do like it. But yeah, so instead of getting a spade blade, you just get a nice drop point. This knife isn't probably the most carried out of all these either, but you can see it has been carried a fair amount. And when I was moving, I believe when I was actually in the process of moving, as in moving boxes over here and all of my knives were away, this is what I was carrying. And I remember that. So I figured I would bring this one up as well. Because there was a period of time where all of my pocket knives were boxed away and all I had was this. Because this is probably my favorite Stockman knife that I have. And, you know, if you're going to be stuck with one knife, you might as well have a knife with 3 blades in case one of them gets jaw. At least that's kind of been my reasoning behind carrying a Stockman. But anyway, I believe I'm going to end this video here. This is like 42 minutes going on. Dixie Stockman by Great Eastern Cutlery. Let me just kind of slide some of these back over here to give the outro here. But yeah, just once again, this isn't really my most carried of 2022 or anything like that. This is just looking at some of my most carried pocket knives that I have in general. And when I say pocket knives, I mean traditional slip joint pocket knives. Maybe at some point I'll do a video on my most carried modern folders, but that really isn't my thing anymore. This is more of what I'm into these days, and that's traditional pocket knives. And you can tell that by looking at my videos. I do have some modern folders and everything, but, and you know, I do enjoy them, but this is really what I really enjoy the most. Um, but yeah, so this is my, or this has been my most carried slip joint pocket knives. And before I leave you here, I'll show you what I have in my pocket today. If you just watched a video I put out fairly recently, it shouldn't be that big of a surprise. But I'm carrying this old hickory slip joint folder right now. I like the simplicity of it. I haven't really used it much yet. I am going to carry it tonight, so we'll get some work cutting boxes and stuff. So we'll see how it holds up to that. I'll assume it won't have any problem or anything. I do look forward to cutting some food with it or something to get it to develop some patina on that carbon steel. But yeah, so that's going to be it for this video on my most carried slip joint knives. And I will see you guys in the next one. Happy New Year. Hope you have a good day. And I'll see you in the next one. I already said that, but yeah. See ya.